Hey guys, my name is Max, and today on the Halo Chronicles I'm going to be talking about things that I enjoyed from Battlefield 1 that I would like to see in Halo 5 or some variation of. Now, I know in gaming nowadays a lot of games are taking features from other platforms and other FPS games and trying to cross them over, such as with Halo 4 bringing in loadouts from Call of Duty and things like that. However, I've been playing Battlefield 1 quite a bit this week, and I thought in this live commentary I would talk about some of the features that I really enjoyed from Battlefield 1 that I would really like to see within Halo 5's multiplayer and campaign. A few missions I'd like to see in potentially either Halo 6 or maybe Halo 7, or potentially in a spin off game which could take heed from what Battlefield 1 did really well in their campaigns. Because I've played through a lot of the Battlefield 1 campaign now, and I feel that the campaign is great, there's just not enough of it. And if Halo can use sort of similar styles that people liked with that campaign, then they can build from somewhere. Because 343 are trying to go for sort of a new style, but Halo 5's campaign really didn't have a style. It just felt a bit like you sort of ran into a room, killed all the enemies, and then moved on. However, I think if they can take a few ideas from Battlefield 1, then they'd be able to create something new and unique to themselves, which adds both things that they've included in old Halo games and things from Battlefield 1. Now, the first thing I'd like to talk about is the Storm of Steel intro in Battlefield 1 for the campaign. You play this scene when you start up the game, no matter what, and this is probably one of the greatest openings to a game I think I've ever seen, just because it is so hard hitting when you're changing between each soldier and you are in the middle of this war. I think that it's something that a lot of games really haven't capitalized on, because it really strikes home when you change from each soldier's perspective, and it is definitely something I haven't seen in any other FPS game before. Now, the way Halo could bring this in is possibly with a spin-off mission. Now, in the Halo Reach, they don't actually include a lot of the soldiers that actually died in the war. They just put the Spartans that you see in Noble Team, and I think they're really missing a trick by not showing off all the Spartans that died in those battles, because so many Spartans fell, but the ones in Halo Reach are the only ones you see. And I don't think that's sort of a fair representation of how destructive the Battle of Reach really was, because in the actual fact the battle lost so many Spartans' lives and caused so much issues for humanity pushing forward to the future, and it was a big turning point in the war. And I feel that sort of emotion would be easily generated in a campaign mission similar to Storm of Steel from Battlefield 1, where they could use different Spartans' lives to sort of showcase how big and vast the war is with the Covenant. And it would be a very gritty style, because I know a lot of Halo's sort of core principles are very, very sort of war-based, military, and despite how far in the future Halo is set, you see things like the Warthog, the Magnum. They're sort of really gritty little weapons and vehicles that, I mean, if we're in the future, we probably would have more than that, and we do have more than that sort of nowadays. And the only reason that Halo doesn't employ it is because it is a very military-based game. I mean, the Marines in the first few Halo games are very, very sort of like today, a lot of them, and some of them are even a little bit further back to what we can actually do with today's technology. And Halo's always tried to stick to those military sort of grounds, and in Halo 5 they sort of lost their identity with going towards a more sort of futuristic style of Marine. Like, if you look at the Marines in Halo 5, they don't act or look like anything as they did in the original trilogy of games. They're very sort of colorized. When you're playing Warzone and you're fighting alongside Marines, they don't really look like the old Marines did. And it definitely doesn't sit well with a lot of people. I know a lot of people who really do prefer the old style of Marines to what today actually shows the Marines as. And this is probably due to the fact people want that sort of older, more military style of Halo back in the games. And so I think a Storm of Steel type mission at the beginning would really show off how vast the Battle of Reach really was. And this could be told through maybe a flashback to the Master Chief, maybe a Halo Wars flashback, or in a spin-off game entirely, which could be dedicated to the Fall of Reach. Now, the next one that I think would work quite well is sort of timed missions and the sort of Zeppelin presence that are in Battlefield 1. Now, I know in the game Battlefield 1 you have the flying Zeppelins, which are hugely influential in the war, and I know they're not historically accurate at times to what the Zeppelins truly were, as the Zeppelins flew quite a bit lower in Battlefield 1 than they do in real life, and this definitely changes how they're viewed. However, I think the UNSC Infinity could act quite a lot like how the Zeppelins do, and I think there could be a really nice campaign mission involving the Zeppelin style of combat, where the Zeppelins may be falling down, or in this case the UNSC Infinity is falling and you have to try and get through the ship, maybe try and fix parts that are falling to pieces, and the whole mission is timed. And this would be very interesting, as Halo hasn't really had any timed campaign missions sort of since combat evolved with the Warthog run, which is to this day one of the most iconic campaign missions, and that one definitely had the sense of urgency. In Halo 5 there isn't really any sense of urgency, as none of the missions are timed, so you always feel like there's nothing really to do. It's always just sort of, you can take it at your own pace, it's very slow, and whilst it is nice to have a methodical kind of style, I think that they aren't capitalizing on how good a timed urgent run would be. It would be a nice change of pace, and it would add a different sort of element to Halo 5, which was definitely missing and I think lackluster in the start of the game. As I know there were a few vehicle missions in Halo 4 that were really enjoyable, and a lot of people didn't like Halo 4's campaign. I was one of the people that did like it, but one of the main complaints was sort of story-wise and other complaints in general. But I definitely feel that the vehicular levels of the game were very good, and they added a lot of diversity to Halo 4's campaign, which would not have been present if they hadn't have stuck with those types of levels. And I personally feel that if 343 used more of these varying levels, sort of time levels, maybe a level where everything, or the UNSC Infinity, was underwater, it would also give a sense of urgency to try and escape the flooding, and this would show how vulnerable humanity actually are, instead of showing them as almost inhumanly able to be killed. In Halo 5's opening cutscene, the Spartans of Osiris team look almost invincible. As they're running around, it seems like no one can actually kill them, and every single piece of the Covenant, they just sort of fall over at their heels, and it definitely makes humanity look too powerful. And that's not in a sense to make that scene look bad, because it was quite a well choreographed scene. However, I just think it doesn't make it look like humanity is actually in any sort of danger, and it sort of just makes me feel that Halo 5 makes humanity looking like they're actually always going to win, and that there's no threat to the universe when there actually is a great threat. And that isn't really portrayed in Halo 5, whereas in the original trilogy, you could never really tell if you were going to win, lose, live or die. Now, the next thing I really enjoy from Battlefield 1 is the vehicles, and there's a lot that can be taken from them and put into Halo. Now, I don't want a sort of exact replica, because that would be quite difficult to do, but I think that we need a sort of repairing vehicles sort of mode, which allows players to take their vehicles that they're in and say they're really damaged, just fix and repair them so that they're able to then fight again. And it feels sort of in Halo 5 that if your vehicle starts to get damaged, you either have to get out or just sort of wait until you die. But if there was a repairing option, such as if you got out of the vehicle and repaired it, you could do more work, but if you did it inside the vehicle, it took a little bit longer to do. That's something I really enjoyed in Battlefield 1, and both in the campaign and multiplayer, it's balanced in well. Now, for maybe Halo 6 or 7, this would be something that would have to be balanced purely into the campaign side of things, as it's a new feature, it hasn't ever been in Halo, and it might need a bit of experimentation time. But I feel it's something that could definitely be utilised in the next few games, because it would give vehicle players a bigger chance to fight off against players with rocket launchers and things because I've always felt people in vehicles are always very underpowered in Halo. They never really get the chance that players just on the ground get, and I feel that it's something that is definitely missed during Halo games. And I would love to see players maybe in Scorpions feel like they have a much better chance than they currently do. I don't feel players who drive around in tanks and things get all the opportunity that they deserve when in their vehicles. Now you can generate very high multi-kills in tanks, but I don't think that it's enough. And it's way too easy to be boarded in a vehicle. I also like the system where you can have players jumping into multiple roles in a vehicle, such as I know there's certain armored tanks which allow for one driver and then 5 or 6 people to be in chain turrets around the vehicle. And this is something we've never really seen since flying vehicles in Halo Reach, where you could sit, I think it was 2, 3 or 4 people on the sides of the seats in chain turrets, and it's something that was greatly missed, and it's a vehicle that everyone wants to see in Halo 5 and potentially Halo 6. And while the Wasp was a great vehicle that a lot of people did enjoy, it wasn't quite the vehicle that everyone had hoped for. And if we just simply included something where you could have lots of people seated, it is more realistic to how people would act in real life with lots of different seats in the vehicle, and it was something I would definitely want to see, as it would encourage so much more teamwork and so many sort of different encounters and new experiences that we've never really seen before in a Halo game, as we could sort of then use the custom vehicle welding that is now supported in Forge to create vehicles with so many seats and lots of people. You could have an entire battle where 2 teams control 1 vehicle each, and then they're just trying to kill each other from 1 vehicle to the next. And that's something that would just create so many new experiences in Halo 5. So moving on to next point, I would like to see some maybe custom HUD ideas. Now, I saw a montage on Halo 5, or I think it was Halo 2 Anniversary, which was made by someone called Bullet Rebel. He's a well-known forger in the Halo community, and he used custom HUDs in his montage, and I feel that in that montage they were a great addition, and they really changed the way the montage played out, and added a lot to it. I think it was Phoenix 3, I'd definitely recommend checking it out. And in Battlefield 1, when you put on new armor, your HUD changes depending on what armor you're wearing. And so in the campaign missions where you're in Italy and you have to fight against forces on the mountains, your HUD changes because you're in this really huge, dominant and powerful armor, which is very, very powerful, and you can see it visibly in the armor you're wearing because your vision is obscured by this huge metal suit. And then when you take the suit off, you sort of go back to a much easier to look through angle, and all the weight appears to go. You can almost physically feel the weight behind you in the vehicles. And what I would probably do for Halo is I would maybe make it for the different sort of armor sets, as I know George's armor in Halo 5 and definitely in Halo Reach, in the game he was in, is huge, and it's very visibly seeable to other players. But I would like it to be seen sort of on your screen as well. So when you look from George's perspective, you see visibly how powerful and strong you are. Now, I know there are certain armor pieces that do this, and it's not necessarily sort of the HUD, but I know on Emil's armor in Halo 5, you can sort of see the gun pouches, you can see the parts on his arms, which show off just how strong he is and how sort of decked up he is with different parts of his armor. However, I think the custom HUDs would then provide a much more different dynamic, as people could customize them. Maybe they could maybe pull out of rec packs if 343 decide to keep going with the rec system. But I would definitely like to be able to maybe create my own, so that I can make my Spartan feel even more menacing than anyone else's, and it would provide a much more unique experience than I think we've seen in the way we are able to customize our Spartan. Is there are lots of ways you can customize, but I feel this would be a completely new route that hasn't been explored by Halo or really any other FPS. And I got this idea originally due to the fact that I saw these custom HUDs in Battlefield 1 that really gave me this idea to change it. I mean, you could sort of change colors, you could make it sort of custom missions where maybe your helmet is off or cracked, like in Halo 5 when Master Chief gets his helmet cracked by a lock. Despite the fact I didn't really like sort of the whole combat and the mission itself, I still think it was quite cool that he lost his part of his part of his visor, and this would be something that 343 could maybe explore by having in the next game, whenever Master Chief is introduced, he has part of his visor cracked and it obscures your vision for a lot of the mission. So I know in Battlefield 1 you get sort of the gas masks for when you're fighting levels with lots of mustard gas, and I feel that if we had something sort of similar in Halo 5, it would maybe just show off just how really intense things were on the battlefield and just how far your vision is obscured by things around you. And now the last point is sort of a more realistic based point, and that is relating to things like reload animations and different sort of things that were common in World War I that you can see in Battlefield 1. I feel the reload animations in Halo 5 can sort of be a little bit clunky, and I know you've got glitches with them which were very common in Halo 2 when you could do obviously reload glitches to reload your gun quicker. And in Battlefield 1 you have to do these fully thought out, prolonged sort of reload animations which are really realistic and definitely feel and put you more in the moment. Now, Halo 5, or Halo in general, has always been a military type of shooter, so having these sort of realistic, having to put the whole weapon back together again, is definitely something I'd sort of want to see. Possibly not always in multiplayer, because a lot would have to change in multiplayer for that to happen, and I know I'm sort of very alone with this sort of opinion. I've never really seen anyone sort of express any real issues with sort of reload animations, but I saw the ones in Battlefield 1 and I thought they're so different that it's something I would love to see in the game. And furthermore, I've noticed that in Halo 5, the bayonet charge, I feel it's not as sort of forceful in Halo 5 compared to how it is in Battlefield 1. Because if you look at the sort of melee charging animation in Battlefield 1, there's a whole sort of function based around weapons that have bayonets. And when you put your bayonet in, the system will then have you charge much faster, and you can do a lot more damage, a one-hit melee, and you're much faster. Now in Halo, when you hit someone with a bayonet in Warzone, because you've got the bayonet DMR or something, you don't do anywhere near as much sort of physical damage in Battlefield 1. You can sort of hear them crying out and running and charging along the battlefield, and that's something I would love to see in Halo 5. Maybe some more screaming as certain weapons are being fired, sort of huge, clunky weapons, or just in your last few moments your character screams out as it happens. And in Battlefield this happens for both multiplayer and campaign, and I feel like it's something that could work very well in Halo 5's multiplayer, because I know it can be done in campaign, but it isn't really explored that much in the multiplayer side of things. And there is also a few other weapons that I sort of liked in Battlefield that could work in Halo. One would be the return of the flamethrower, which is present in Battlefield 1. And the Battlefield 1 flamethrower sort of reacts to the environment around it, which is something that Halo has definitely not had before, as it's sort of just, if you have a flamethrower, if you shoot it forward, it will do whatever it's sort of told, it will just go forward, and directions won't ever change. But dynamic environments is definitely something that 343 could try and explore for Halo 5 and change it. There are also a lot of weapons that I feel could come with sort of default bayonets that would be good for sort of casual game modes. These sort of open up new styles of custom games. I know these probably wouldn't work in sort of matchmaking necessarily. However, I definitely feel that things like bayonets and sort of little weapon attachments could be really good if 343 just added a few more of them. I know you have quite a lot of options for Warzone. However, I just don't think there are enough to sort of keep players satisfied with the amount of options that you're given available. In Battlefield 1, you also have so many different primary and secondary weapons, and they range from tons of different pistols. And while Halo 5 doesn't have a lot of different secondary weapons, I feel that it would be definitely good to sort of explore different types of pistol, because I know you just have sort of default Magnum and that's about it. But in Battlefield 1 you get so many different sidearms, and that is all that I sort of saw in Battlefield 1 that I would really like to have brought into Halo 5, because I wouldn't necessarily call them copying because they would have to be changed to make them unique to Halo, but I think 343 sort of need their own sort of style, and I think if making a few of these changes to the current Halo 5 playing style could really work for upcoming titles, as they could really give 343 the vision they've desperately needed for so long. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found some of these points useful. I know that a lot of people may disagree with a few of the points I've made. Some of them are quite abstract and would be very experimental, as I've sort of just thought of them up on the fly. They aren't really sort of tested ideas or any specific missions built around what story Halo 6 or 7 could have in store. Feel free to share some of your ideas in the comments below as the types of things that you would want to see in potentially the next few Halos, or what you liked from Battlefield 1 that could potentially go into the next game. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry it was a bit rambly, this is my first time sort of doing a gameplay commentary. I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you on the next one.